Did you know that 70% of arguments in the workplace are lost due to poor communication, not lack of knowledge? Or that the average person spends nearly 6 months of their life arguing? In a world where we're constantly debating, whether it's at work, at home, or online, knowing how to win arguments can set you apart as a true leader. But here's the kicker: it's not about just being right. It's about outsmarting your opponent and taking control of the conversation. Leaders don't just argue to win, they argue to influence, persuade, and leave a lasting impression. In this guide, you'll learn how to destroy anyone in an argument with proven strategies. These are the same tactics top leaders use to dominate conversations, win respect, and always come out on top. Ready to take your communication skills to the next level? Let's dive in. Chapter 1. Master the art of psychological warfare. Psychological warfare is about understanding how to control the mental battlefield. Leaders know that the first step in winning an argument is to avoid getting emotionally charged. When you keep your emotions in check, you instantly gain an advantage. Research shows that people who stay calm during conflict are seen as more competent and trustworthy. Harvard Business Review, 2017. By using calmness and strategic pauses, you allow your opponent to feel like they're the one losing control. One clever trick? Mirror their body language. Studies show that when you subtly mimic your opponent's posture or gestures, they feel more connected to you. It can disarm them and make them more receptive to your arguments. Another useful technique is negging, dropping a subtle, backhanded compliment that makes them question their own ideas. It's a psychological nudge, not an attack, but it works like magic. Remember, it's not always about what you say, but how you say it. Use controlled speech and remain calm, even when provoked. This shows confidence, which is the foundation of leadership. Chapter 2. The weapon of patience. Silence is your secret weapon. Silence may sound simple, but it's a game changer in any argument. Leaders who know how to use silence can create uncomfortable pauses that put their opponents on the defensive. In fact, a study published by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that silence can make people more likely to agree with you because they feel the need to fill the void. When you're in the heat of a debate, use pauses to make your opponent second-guess their words. It's a subtle power move that shifts the focus onto them, making them feel rushed. When they stumble or try to fill the silence, they're already losing ground. Silence is also a tool of patience. Instead of jumping in immediately with your response, take a second to gather your thoughts. This gives you more time to find the perfect words to counter their argument. And as you hold your silence, you're not just pausing, you're positioning yourself as a leader who thinks before they act. Chapter 3. Turn their strengths into weaknesses. A good leader knows that no one is perfect. Even the strongest arguments have weak spots. If you can identify these weaknesses and turn them against your opponent, you'll have the upper hand. Leaders are expert problem solvers, and an argument is no different. Find the flaw in their logic, and use it against them. For example, if they present a statistic that seems unshakable, don't just attack the number. Instead, question the source or ask if the data applies in a broader context. The trick is to make them explain themselves in ways they hadn't planned for. This shows that you're not just arguing, you're questioning their credibility. It's also useful to highlight contradictions in their argument. If they say one thing and then contradict it later, call attention to the inconsistency. This creates doubt, and doubt leads to insecurity. As a leader, you need to make sure the other party feels confident in their stance before they enter an argument. Subscribe now to stay ahead of the curve on more powerful leadership and communication tips that will transform the way you argue. Chapter 4. The strategic shift. Redirecting their energy. The best leaders know how to take control of a conversation. One of the easiest ways to do this is to redirect the argument to a topic where you're stronger. If your opponent brings up a point that's uncomfortable for you, quickly pivot to an area where you have more knowledge. You don't have to directly confront every challenge they pose. Simply shift their focus to something you dominate. A great example comes from Steve Jobs, who was a master at redirecting conversations during product launches. When questions became difficult or pointed, he would quickly turn the focus back to the product's strengths. This isn't trickery, it's about setting the agenda. In fact, reframing the argument is a core leadership skill. If someone's argument is framed negatively, like, "This idea will never work," you can reframe it as a positive challenge. "How can we make this idea work?" This shifts the entire tone of the debate and puts your opponent on the defensive. Chapter 5. The power of the unlikely fact in an argument. The most powerful weapon you can use is surprise. When you drop an unexpected fact or perspective, it can completely destabilize your opponent's argument. The surprise factor makes them reconsider their stance entirely. A great example of this comes from the book, Outliers, by Malcolm Gladwell, where he explores the role of unexpected factors in success. He shows how success is often not just about talent, but also about taking advantage of unlikely opportunities. By introducing an unlikely fact that your opponent hadn't considered, you force them to rethink their position entirely. Leaders don't just rely on common knowledge. They bring in unique insights, surprising facts, or counterexamples that others may overlook. For instance, if your opponent uses a commonly known statistic, you could counter with a newer study that contradicts it or shows a different angle. Chapter 6. Leaving a mark. How to end the battle and win the war. Winning an argument doesn't end with the final point. The true leader knows how to conclude a conversation in a way that leaves others respecting their opinion. You may win a single argument, but winning the war is about maintaining your credibility and influence. A strong conclusion should leave a lasting impression. Think of it as your final chance to seal the deal. Leaders often end arguments by summarizing the key points and reasserting their main argument in a compelling way. This makes your stance clearer and leaves little room for rebuttal. But here's the real secret: leave room for them to agree with you. If you end the debate in a way that feels like a mutual victory, you'll strengthen your relationship with the person you're debating. As leadership expert Simon Sinek says, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. Ending an argument respectfully shows you care more about the relationship than about simply being right. Subscribe for more strategies to become a persuasive leader who doesn't just win arguments, but builds lasting influence. In conclusion, the key to dominating any argument isn't about overpowering your opponent. It's about using leadership tactics to shift the balance of power. By staying calm, patient, and strategic, you can turn any conversation into a victory. So the next time you find yourself in a heated debate, remember, it's not just about winning the argument, it's about mastering the conversation.